Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. I got a few things I want to talk at you about today, so grab your coffee, fist bump your neighbor, stretch those hammies. You know what to do, and let's get started.
Gonna get pursued. Gonna get pursued.
All right, first things first, because I'm a man of my word, I'm about to pay up. I said last week that if we reach 15,000 followers over here on Parler, we'd celebrate. And y'all know how we celebrate around here. Anyway, iPodders went above and beyond like usual, and now we're up to 19,000, almost to 20. No, we're not going to celebrate twice, fatty. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to celebrate, though. Here's some cake. Look at this bad boy right here. This is an orange pineapple cake. I've never had this before, but it looks delicious. Don't eat the flour. That's just garnish. Light and citrusy and tangy, just like my channel. Anyway, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for joining me over here. I highly suggest you join me over here, as well as BitChute, considering all the banning and blocking that's going around that I will address in just a moment. So thanks to all of you for liking my videos, sharing my videos, doing everything that you do. Thanks to all of you, except for CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, who likely hacked into my channel, maybe not personally, but probably one of her cronies this week. Anyway, grab yourself a piece of cake. Thanks for all you do, and let's get started. Next order of business, as you can see, I've been hacked once again. That is twice this week into my Google account, which of course affects much more than just my YouTube account. It affects all my devices. Now, there was one device I was able to log into YouTube with, and that's the one I'm actually making this video with today. But if this gets logged out, there's a very good chance I could lose this platform altogether. So I really suggest that you go over to BitChute and join me there. And the reason I suggest BitChute is because it actually is a video hosting platform as opposed to Gab and Parler and other platforms like that, Twitter. They don't actually host the videos. You can link videos to them, but they don't actually host the videos themselves. So if you want to see the videos, I really suggest going over there to BitChute and creating yourself an account if you've not done that already. Thanks to all of you who have done that. And thank you for your patience. I know this is a big pain in the butt for you guys. It's a huge pain in the butt for me. On a side note, my personal Facebook was permanently banned yesterday, and I hadn't even posted anything. And from what I understand, there's a group of viewers who made an IPOT group over there on Facebook. I have nothing to do with that group. I didn't create it. You're more than welcome to create it. Thank you for doing so. But from what I understand, that group was also banned. So it looks like they're going after me pretty hard, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of content creators going through the same thing, and I know that many of you are also going through the same thing, and I'm very sorry that you guys are experiencing that too. But I do ask for your patience, and this is a really good reason, or just another one of the many good reasons why I am choosing to focus on more full-length projects, getting creative with some of that stuff, spending some of my time laying low and really getting more bang for the buck. I'd really like to give you better content as opposed to more content. I know a lot of people miss the quote-unquote daily updates. Well, I'm not daily news, and I really never had a desire to do daily news. I had a desire to just give you better content as this goes on, and I still plan to do just that, whether it's on YouTube or another platform. So please join me over there on BitChute. Thanks for all your patience. Thanks for understanding. And for those of you who have suggested that I just open up some backup YouTube accounts, I've really tried that. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Anytime I try to sign up for a new account, I'm shut down. So it's very clear they know exactly who is trying to create these accounts. That being said, if somebody wanted to create a dummy account, hint, hint, wink, wink, and turn it over, you're more than welcome to do so, but I would never want to ask somebody to do that for me. But that's what we're at with it right now. YouTube very well may be going away at some point, so I suggest that you join me on another platform. And if you're on YouTube, those are all linked down below in the video description. Just click that little see more button, and that will open up the links for you. First story I want to talk about today is from Yahoo News. People in the US have reported receiving packages marked as jewelry that actually contain mysterious seeds from China. Some Utah residents told Fox 13 they received small packages with Chinese writing indicating that the items were jewelry, but they contained unidentified seeds. Officials in Virginia and Kentucky told residents who received these packages not to plant the seeds as they may be invasive plant species. Okay, so I want to stop right there because there's a lot right there. First of all, if you do not live in the United States, or if you've never been to the United States, Utah is in the northwest of the United States. It's a pretty big place, but it's clear across the country from Virginia and Kentucky. So this is covering a lot of area, and it looks like it's happening all over the place, which sounds like a pretty big problem. Now, we've talked about seeds before, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to direct you to some older material that I posted, but the idea of an invasive plant species can be really, really scary, because what can happen is this can take over an entire crop. And of course, if you kill crops, you kill food supply. So this is a really, really big deal. Now, there were some related stories that I saw the other day too, as opposed to it being jewelry, they were getting tucked in phones. But either way, I think you understand this is a big idea. They're trying to get these seeds into the country. I opened them up and they were seeds, Lori Cully of Tooele told the outlet of packages she found on Tuesday.
Obviously, they're not jewelry.
Fox 13 reported that the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food would likely investigate in coordination with Customs and Border Protection. Let me skip you down a little bit here. Kentucky's Commissioner of Agriculture, Ryan Quarles, said on Sunday that Kentucky was the fourth known state to report suspicious packages appearing to originate from China containing seeds. Quarles also asked recipients not to plant the seeds, as they could contain invasive species. He said they should put the package in a bag, wash their hands, and contact the Department of Agriculture. Okay, so this might even get onto your hands. And let me end it with this last sentence here. While it's unclear what the seeds are, invasive species pose a large threat. A 2016 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that invasive species represented a multi-billion-dollar threat for agriculture around the world. Okay, so like I said, this truly is a big deal. And I just want to point out that the lead picture here has a mailbox and the address is 2294. It's probably just a coincidence that 2 plus 2 plus 9 plus 4 equals... I know. So let's get a little bit more insight into this story, which means I got to take you back. Yay.
Got a flashback aside, yeah, take you back,
Taking you back to my video from December 13th, 2019, entitled 42B, In Pursuit of Truth Presents. And by the way, if you type it in just like that, you should be able to find it. If you cannot, you don't need to let me know. I've known for 3 years how this works. But just search in my videos header on my homepage and scroll down until you get the date. And the reason I include the thumbnail is so you know what to look for there. But we talked about this a while back. And we talked about Q Post 2379, where Q actually mentions corn, and how we were talking about ethanol and the increased ethanol production and the increased ethanol amounts going into our gasoline, which is not really good for us long term, but it was kind of implying that this was an effort to combat all the trade wars that we were having with China involving corn specifically and our farmers. But this is a really big deal, and in this video we also talk about a couple of Chinese nationals that were arrested. One, his name was Mo Halom, and he was a Florida resident that was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He was actually stealing trade secrets, and they were tied to seeds, but particularly corn seeds. And the reference 42B that we see in the title actually came from a Devin Nunes tweet, corn for to be cut. And so there's a lot of references there and connections that I would love you to see if you have not seen it already. We've done a couple of videos on this topic, but it has to do with trade secrets. There's another story in this video having to do with some Iowa residents who were actually digging up seeds, and they were arrested too. This happened out in Iowa. So this is a big deal, and it directly involves China. It's all been connected. I've been talking about this for quite some time. This to me looks like some sort of, I don't know what you call it, germ warfare, agricultural warfare. But once we start to see China's motivations, it really starts to make sense. They're really wanting to do this, I think, not just on US soil, but around the world. But there you go. There is the video 42B. Check that out. That should color this in. Okay, so as I stated in previous videos, because I'm Mystic Mac, I do believe this to be a massive story. And I don't think we can pin this down to just one motivating factor. There are numerous. Like I said, we're talking about germ warfare here. We're talking about agricultural warfare, financial warfare. Keep in mind the US and China are trying to get this massive trade deal done somehow. We have no idea how it's all going to shake out, but it really involves both countries, and it's a big deal for both countries. And it's also a big sticking point that Democrats are trying to pin on President Trump. If he can't get this done, they're going to try and use this for the election elections. Well, he failed at getting the China deal done, etc., etc. I think you understand. And of course, if they can damage crops over in the United States, that's going to force the United States to have to purchase outside the United States, which is not good for the United States. This wouldn't be good for any country. So this is part of China's insidious little plan, right? But like I said, there are different motivating factors for all of this, and I don't think it's just as simple as crippling the United States, as China is also struggling. But what we've seen over the years is that people are taking secrets from whether it's these genetically modified corn seeds or other seeds and taking them to China and then also bringing them back. So whether they're trying to export good ones and import bad ones, it's hard to really say until it all shakes out, but it definitely seems like something that is flying largely under the radar while we look at so many things pass by through our news cycle. Now I want to focus on what I think is one of the main motivating factors for China, and this is a great little thread here from the Huntsman on Twitter entitled "When the Levee or Dam Breaks." 1,000 kilometers upriver from Shanghai and the mouth of the Yangtze Delta River sits a marvel of modern mega engineering, the Three Gorges Dam. It might be about to collapse. What happens if it does? And there you can see this is a really impressive structure. It truly is probably one of the biggest marvels of engineering that I've ever seen. Completed over 21 years, 1994 to 2015, out of more than 28 million cubic meters of concrete and 463 tons of steel, the 185-meter tall Three Gorges Dam is today the largest hydroelectric dam on Earth. It generates around 2% of China's total electrical power demand. It sounds small, but it's not. As far back as 1918, Chinese political leaders have promoted damming the Three Gorges due to the ever-present threat of catastrophic flooding up and down the Yangtze River. In 1931, more than 300,000 people were killed by floods. 300,000, ladies and gentlemen. In 1954 and 1998, 3,000 plus perished in each year. In 1982, Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping promised to make the Three Gorges Dam a reality. By 1992, enough political support had been assembled for the project to be approved. The groundbreaking was in December of 1994, though it wasn't until 97 that the first concrete was poured. However, the project did not come without enormous cost. The price tag has run more than 30 billion USD. Choking off the sedimentary flow of the river reduces the available fertile silt required by farmland downstream and increases risk of flooding. All things considered, the Three Gorges Dam truly is a Herculean feat of engineering, political willpower, and propaganda. This despite the risks and challenges for the people of China, especially the more than 55 million people who live along the Yangtze downstream. It's beyond my ken to assess the structural risks and likelihood of failure for the TGD. CCP officials are downplaying risk because that's what they do. They indeed are. Obviously, you've probably seen some of the footage. There is flooding everywhere. People are dying. We have no idea how many, but so many people are being displaced from their homes. Now, keep in mind, China has seemingly been kind of banging the war drums around the world, right? Especially pressuring the United States. But the fact of the matter is that this country right now is really, really struggling, both financially and with something like this. This has potential to kill maybe even millions of people. We don't really know, but it is definitely going to ruin their land, which may suggest the reason why they're going around trying to germinate other areas of the world. We must first understand the importance of the Yangtze River in practical terms. The watershed of the Yangtze River is broadly divided into the upper, middle, and lower reaches. Each reach is an industrial powerhouse with specific economic and military significance. The westernmost upper reach is anchored by Chongqing, a massive megacity region of more than 30 million people. As China's west-facing Belt and Road gateway, Chongqing plays a critical role in connecting the Yangtze to Central Asia and Europe via rail, the New Silk Road. So you can see why this is such a big deal here. The rail service called Chongqing-Xinjiang Europe Railway stretches more than 11,000 kilometers and traverses a number of Central Asian nations. It is operated jointly by Chinese, Russian, and German logistic companies and just departed its 10,000 train in March. Now I want to stop right there, and I'm just going to take you on a little quick side note. I mentioned the other day when we were talking about the Arctic that it was China and Russia getting together to mine minerals out there. Well, that would probably be a big reason why they need some of these minerals, right? Not the sole reason, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was one of them. However, the CXE does not just serve Chongqing and Chengdu. It connects cargo to China's massive Central Eastern Industrial Base via the Yangtze River container on-ship service. This subsidized shorter routing cuts transit time to Wuhan from Europe by 10 to 14 days. This two-way multimodal service was a safety valve for the Central China Industrial Region centered in Wuhan. And I seem to remember something else being centered in Wuhan when ocean and air cargo service ground to a halt at the onset of the Cub. We call it the Cub. The kids call it the Cub. I call it the Rona. You call it whatever you like. Either way, I don't freaking have it. No offense if you do. Trucks traveled to Chongqing with cargo moving to Europe on the CXE. Okay, so I'm skipping through this a little bit, but I want to make a point. Further, the ASEAN nations have become critical trade partners with Chongqing, Western China, as traffic along the new international land-sea trade corridor has exploded. This China-Singapore joint venture has seen almost 2,000 container trains move since 2017. Okay, well, I stated in my video the other day, I believe it was entitled Icebreaker from maybe a week or so ago, that so much of our commerce is traveling through these routes. So you can see why this would be such a big deal. There's a lot of money, and this involves not just China, but the entire area of Southeast Asia, as well as into Europe. Now let me take you down even further. We're talking about the port of Wuhan. Handles more than 1.5 million containers a year, 50% more than Chongqing. So that's a huge part of not just their GDP, but the global GDP. Wuhan's Tianhe Airport serviced more than 24 million passengers in 2018 and a little more than 220 kilometric tons of air cargo. So that's a big deal. It's also the PFE hub of China. As you can see there, it is a pretty big port. So now let's talk a little bit about what will actually happen if this dam fails. A 100-meter tall wall of water will rush out at more than 100 kilometers per hour. In 30 minutes, Yijiang and its 4 million residents will be engulfed. 4 million people, ladies and gentlemen. And there's the map right there. 0 + 1 hour. Jingzhuo and 5 to 7 million people will be swept away. 0 + 5, the major industrial city of Yuegang. 5.5 million people will sit 5 meters underwater. 10 more hours, Wuhan, 11 million people will face flooding of 6 to 8 meters in all major industrial and port zones. Okay, so as you can see, this is epic, and this is really going to affect the Chinese people, and the Chinese people likely don't know about this. And if they do know about this, they're being told by their government that yes, it's a little awkward. They're saying, well, our dam's a little wonky. It's not faulty, though. It still works. They're not warning of something that could very well kill millions of people. Plus 15 hours. Zhujiang, another major PPE hub with 4.7 million residents, will be hit with several meters of flooding. All cropland, let me say that again, all cropland and infrastructure will be flooded and damaged. So now you see where I'm going with this right here. 24 hours, Shanghai's neighboring city of Nanjing will see its port crippled. So this is going to cripple China in a big, big way. And they're being faced with this in a very real matter. Note, the Yangtze watershed is massive, but biblical levels of rain have been flooding western and central China for weeks. There simply is nowhere for the water to go except outwards towards the East China Sea and the world's largest port of Shanghai, which is something that has been in contention. If you follow me on Twitter, I'm constantly saying to watch that area, right? Circling back now to Wuhan and the impacts to supply chains. Ports along the Yangtze saw more than 19.4 million TEU, standard unit of container measure, 20-foot equivalent unit in cargo traffic in 2019. By comparison, Shanghai handled 42 million TEU in 2019. So this is a ton of commerce right out the drain. And this doesn't just affect China, it affects all of us. In simple terms, the Yangtze River Logistics and Manufacturing Complex comprises 46% of the volume of the largest port on Earth, since all cargo flows through Shanghai. Failure of the Three Gorges Dam would annihilate the entire logistics infrastructure of central China. And now we're starting to see why China is interested in getting to the Arctic, why they're wanting to get into Africa, why they're wanting to get into Australia, why they're wanting to get into South America. They're literally fleeing in a lot of ways, right? The Yangtze River east of the dam bases many PLA anti-air, ballistic missile, and PLA Air Force assets. Several entities, Taiwan included, have speculated openly about the ability to strike the dam with missiles and cause massive downstream devastation. So you can see why now China is being so aggressive with their neighbors, especially Taiwan, Hong Kong. They're not playing around right now because it looks like they might be preparing for the worst. So let me just sum it up here. From an economic military standpoint, all activity on the Yangtze would halt. The rescue and recovery efforts will be enormous, taking months to complete and only after the waters recede. Peak water levels may not crest until August, and Yangtze ports are already slowed. And consider, even once the flooding goes down, if it ever really does go down in a lot of areas, this soil will be ruined. The Yangtze River Economic Basin has a GDP of more than 6.5 trillion, or about half of all China's GDP. Recall, China represents 28% of all manufacturing output globally. More than half of that is in the YREB. 15% of the world's production would go offline in 24 hours. Okay, 15% of the world's production would go offline in 24 hours. Sounds big to me. China's central banking system, already cracking under the pressure of COVID-19 and the trade war, will not be able to help domestic companies recover fast enough. The CCP will not be able to keep subsidizing production in an attempt to keep the economy growing. The middle reach of the Yangtze River is also China's main agricultural production zone, where the crops are nearing harvest. African swine fever rages on. Famine will follow without huge imports of protein from the US, Europe, and South America. Okay, so at this point, I think we can see a lot of different sub-narratives within this story. We can kind of see the humanity of all this, but we can also see that the government of China is not simply acting offensive in nature. This is also self-preservation for them in a big, big way. And in that sense, the United States can kind of capitalize on that, and you know that they will. So at the beginning of Trump's presidency, we had this big talk of these Chinese trade deals and this and that. And of course, Trump was boasting about it too, right? And he wanted to get this done. We know this is very important to him. It's very important to a lot of people. It's important to our American farmers. And of course, it's going to be an important point come election time. So there needs to be some sort of resolve. Now, this started off really rocky, right? The Chinese raised their tariffs to almost 20%. And of course, then Trump countered back, raising a lot of tariffs to nearly 21%. And of course, that forced China to have to do some buying. China's going to need to buy about $39 billion worth. Now, they weren't really wanting to do that. And then when the coronavirus hit, they sort of hid under that guy, saying, well, because we have to deal with this pandemic around the world, we're not going to be able to buy up as much as we had originally planned. But now all of a sudden we have these biblical proportion rains falling on China, which is putting so much pressure. So much of their cropland has already been damaged. And we've seen the result in this because now there's an uptick in that buying again. As a matter of fact, in July, I believe it was July 14th, China bought their biggest purchase to date of corn. And this was nearly, I want to say it was 1.7 million tons. Now, what they're not talking about are the other purchases that China are making, not just from the US, but from other countries, whether it be sorghum, wheat, cotton, soy, and of course, pork. With these floods, a lot of these pigs are going to get the swine flu again. We've seen this happen before. And if you'll remember, about a year and a half ago, China was buying up some quote unquote emergency meat. So it sounds like they knew this might be coming. But with these rains, it's putting a lot of pressure on China to buy a lot of what they already had promised to buy in this deal. So naturally, the U.S. is benefiting. And of course, they're going to capitalize on that. But at the same time, the United States is one of the few nations that's actually in the position to truly help China with this situation. So is it possible that with all these rains, China is going to be forced into playing ball into the original deal? And of course, that will result in a very good economy, which is strange because President Trump was predicting that the economy would bounce back before the elections. Will this have a bit to do with it? I imagine so. Is it going to be the sole factor? I don't really know. I do think it's going to play a big part. Keep in mind, so much of this is a massive part of the global economy, not just China's. But either way, China is in a position right now where they don't really have a whole lot of options. They've got to feed the people, and they are, whether or not we really know the structural integrity of this dam, we don't know. Are these rains being drummed up on purpose? Well, I don't really know. We do know that there's weather controlling technologies and things like that, but I don't want to really go into stuff that I can only speculate on. But what we do know is that it's raining more than ever right now, and that's putting a Ton of pressure on that dam, a ton of pressure on the Chinese people, and even more pressure on the Chinese government. Which leads me to my next story. Big thanks to an Anon who sent this to me. Linwood couple busted after being found with up to $23 million worth of illicit fentanyl. This is from KOMO, Linwood, Washington. A Linwood man and woman are in custody after they were found last weekend with a multi-million-dollar cache of illegal drugs, weapons, cash, and drug manufacturing materials in what is now the largest seizure of fentanyl in Snohomish County history, law enforcement authorities said Tuesday. Authorities said the street value of the confiscated fentanyl, a synthetic opioid prescribed by doctors to treat severe pain, ranged from $14 million to $23 million. According to officials, about 1.4 million counterfeit pills could be produced from the seized fentanyl, which was large enough to kill 700,000 people. The 38-year-old man is facing charges that include 3 felony counts of manufacturing and selling illicit narcotics and unlawful possession of a firearm, said Courtney O'Keefe, spokesperson for the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. All right, so let's see what they found. Approximately 1,400 grams of fentanyl powder, 13 grams of heroin in the center console of the vehicle, and a pistol under the passenger side floorboard. 808 grams of heroin, approximately 12 grams of methamphetamine, several blenders with large amounts of suspected drug residue in them, several digital scales with suspected drug residue on the weigh plates, large amounts of various types of drug packaging materials, including vacuum sealable bags, etc., large quantities of cutting agents for the manufacture of illicit narcotics for sale, binding agents, a 9mm handgun, a pistol grip 12-gauge shotgun, which actually, I'm not going to lie to you, it looks pretty awesome. I'm just saying, it does. It looks pretty awesome. Various calibers of ammunition and $1,400 in cash. Authorities say the couple told investigators that while they were unemployed, they visited casinos several times a week. Okay, so yet another crazy story, and we know that a lot of this fentanyl comes from China. Whether or not this fentanyl comes from China, we don't know, but we can suspect it because so much of our fentanyl comes from China. But this is just another great example of so much infiltrating our borders and particularly our ports, which kind of leads me to the next point. I've been saying that whether it's defensive or offensive in nature, China is spreading out throughout the world and they're taking over lots of ports. We see this going on currently in Australia, and it looks like Australia is finally starting to wake up to this idea, and we had it here ourselves. We had it in the port of Long Beach with Costco, right? Not the same Costco that sells all the cheap stuff where you can find Hillary Clinton signing books about crusty women. Not that Costco, a different Costco. C-O-S-C-O. Anyway, so the point is that these ports are so important, not just because of the human trafficking aspect that we talk about a lot on this channel, the drugs, the guns, all of that, but right now, with China being so offensive and so encroaching, this could very well lead to troops coming in. And I think that's a big reason why the U.S. is meeting them out there in the South China Sea, whether or not it's guns, drugs, these seeds, humans, or whatever. Much of this is going to come through the ports, and that's why it's so important that we look at ports like California and New York. A guy like Gavin Newsom would be happy to let China waltz right in. But keep in mind, if they do this, they are not going to just bring a bunch of Antifa soy boys with skinny jeans. These are going to be full-blown soldiers taking over because they actually need the land at this point. And if you don't think that's beyond China's ambitions, you're sorely mistaken, because it's largely been their ambition since the beginning of China, right? They have a globalist expansion kind of ideal out there. So right now, with the floods going on, I can't imagine but help but think that they're going to try and overwhelm all kinds of borders wherever they can and try and take over at some point and bring in their own troops, whether they're UN troops. We've seen a lot of the local state politicians now trying to call for the UN to come in and sort of squelch this back and forth with the protesters and the federal government. You see where this is all kind of coming into play. And the port cities are going to be so crucial as to the security of our nation, because it, like I said, it won't just be these protesters that are going to come in. These are going to be literal, whether they're UN, Chinese, foreign soldiers, whether there's some sort of private military. This is where they're going to come from. And it looks like when we see stories like this, this shows their ambition. So there you have it. Now, there's a lot of stories going on. I'm going to probably try and make a quick burn about the whole debacle from yesterday's bar testimony, but I'm going I need some time to just kind of look through that for a little bit. But let me leave you with this tweet that I tweeted yesterday from today, which is also from the near future. So do the math on that. A source close to production of the Ellen DeGeneres show has confirmed to NBC News that Warner Media has launched an internal investigation into the show amid reports alleging a toxic work environment. So this is an interesting story. We've had a lot of people getting canceled. Oprah's got her gig canceled. She's going into the 1619 project. And we also have Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon. We've got Ellen DeGeneres. We've got a lot of people that are going off the air. And it seems very curious, right? Is this all just because of the Rona? Now all of a sudden we're getting these allegations that this was a toxic work environment. Well, I can tell you from my perspective as somebody who knows people in the business that have kind of casually mentioned her, that it was never a very pleasant thing for decades long, and that seems to be a very common theme. Now, we can't damn somebody for that, of course. That's just being kind of a jerk. You know, it's not illegal to be a jerk. But there's a lot of implications here, right? And of course, we know she's got some big powered friends that are also going off the air right now, and she's made some creepy videos ever since everybody started having their little coronavirus breakdown. You can go back to some of my older videos and see that we've covered some of that, some really odd tweets, and many of these featured her. There was one where she was kind of referring to Tom Hanks, saying that it's kind of like all up to you. Remember, she was trying to do this card trick and she couldn't do the card trick, and just really weird breakdowns that we're seeing from these stars. And then of course a lot of you will reference the fact that her set piece itself looks a lot like the temple that we saw on Epstein's Island. So is there a deeper investigation going on? Well, I think many anons probably suspect that it's possible, but I do want to point out that this is a third-party investigation, so it's kind of like the Vatican investigating themselves like they did about 6 months ago. It's hard to really say what will become of this. Now, we have Telepictures, which is the group that actually produces the show, and Warner Brothers, which is the one making the announcement here. They actually produce the show. They have both come out with a statement saying that Ellen is not a part of this at all. Whether or not that's true, who knows, but that's what their official statement is saying. They're making this out about to be kind of like racism and just kind of toxic attitudes in the work environment. That seems very strange to me because there's a lot of shows that involve that. I've been on a lot of sets that were toxic. It's just that way. So if there's an actual investigation going on, it leads me to think that there must be something even bigger going on. Now, couple this with the fact that you have Tom Hanks and Rita Hanks out there now becoming citizens of Greece, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is a little bit, they kind of treat pedophilia as if it's like a sickness out there. So this is really, really curious. And I believe they're also non-extradition out there in Greece. So we're starting to see things really move. Now, whether or not this is just sleight of hand kind of stuff, I don't really know. I don't like to get into the sensationalism, but I would be lying to tell you that this isn't a very curious story. Ellen has long been known to be a bit of a creep. Now, I don't necessarily mean a kitty diddler creep. I just mean a creep in general. Whether there's something more to it, it seems very possible. We've dug up a lot of clues over the months. But this is a third-party investigation. They're claiming she has nothing to do with it. And I have a feeling that this could be part of a humiliation sort of ritual, if at all. If this has anything to do with the sort of global Hollywood cabal, then I would think that it could be something like that, some sort of public humiliation ritual where she's being dragged through the mud to see whether or not she caves or whether or not she's a very good boy. You know what I mean? So who knows what's going to turn out about this? But at the very least, I think the benefit of this is that people will start to see, people that are waking up will start to see that their Hollywood stars are not who they appear to be. Now, whether or not they get into the next deeper rabbit hole will be up to them. But at least if they start to see that these people aren't the figures that they're painted out to be, it's a really, really great start. And it doesn't surprise me if this is just another chipping away at that awakening. But there you go. There you have it. That's all I got for you today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Please check out one of my alternate links if you have not done already and get yourself joined up over there. Thanks for all you do. I'll be seeing you very soon. All those links are down below. If you got information for me, please email me. Please do not DM me on Twitter, as I do not answer them. And all those links are also in the video description on YouTube, or they are pinned to the top of my Twitter feed. There you go. That's all I got for you today. This is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay pursuit tight.